Hello everybody, thank you for joining us today for another Facebook event. I'm Karen Gaborik, Superintendent of the Fairbanks North Starborough School District, and today what I want to talk about is budget. So we are right in the middle of not only budget season but the legislative session. We're coming up on about the halfway point of session, and of course budget and our state funding are always two conversations that are progressing at sort of on parallel tracks, and so I wanted to share with you today where we are at in the school district budget process. And so what the school board has in front of them right now is the proposed budget. My administration, I propose a budget to the school board and I submit that to them by February 1st. The school board then spends approximately 6 weeks going over that budget and asking lots of questions, making sure they understand what we've included, not included, that sort of thing. They need to then approve what's called a recommended budget. So it's the school board's recommended budget after spring break. And this year, the school board, we are scheduled to do that the week, I think, of March 23rd. So a couple weeks after spring break, the board will recommend a budget. That's the budget that they then send to the Borough Assembly. And then we wait, and the Borough Assembly does their work. Myself and President Dominique and also our Chief Operations Officer, Andy DeGraw, will go over and make a presentation to the Borough. That happens about mid-April. I think we're scheduled for April 15th this year. We make our presentation to the Borough. And again, then the Borough does their work. And then in early May, the Borough will make their decisions about funding. At the same time, the legislative session in Juneau is progressing. So the reason those two pieces are important is because we get a significant portion of our funding, of course, from the state and also from the borough. So I'll walk through that with you with this approved budget summary. So you can find all of this information online if you like, and I think we'll have some graphics too that you can see as I walk through this presentation. But in terms of the approved, or in terms of what we have for proposed budget this year, 24% of our revenue in the proposed budget is coming from the Fairbanks North Star Borough. And so that equates to just about, or exactly, $51,124,000. And so in my proposed budget, I have kept that number at a status quo level from the borough. So that's about 24% of our revenue. The biggest portion of our revenue comes from the state of Alaska. And in the proposed budget, this year it's $130,943,251. So those are the two places where we advocate in terms of funding for schools. Other funding areas are from the federal government. We receive impact aid funds for our military connected students, and also a few other places in the from the federal government, and then we have some other revenue sources as well. So when it comes to expenditures, again, just big picture expenditures in the district, 46% goes to instruction, 17% special education. So when I say instruction, I mean regular instruction. 17% special education, 11% student support services, 7% school administration and support services, 6% district administration and support services, 12% is operations and maintenance. So a lot of that's our facilities department, maintaining all of the buildings and all of the infrastructure that we have. Student activities is about 1%, and then we have just a few other small categories as well. So a couple numbers that are really important for people to know is that 88% of our proposed budget right now is allocated to salaries and benefits. So that's basically people. To deliver high quality public education, you need people to do that work, and so 88% of our budget pays salaries and benefits for folks. So I want to walk through in the proposed budget just a few highlights of areas that we are investing in and areas that we've had to reduce. One important note is that in the governor's budget that he released in December, is that the base student allocation, so the number that drives funding for all the school districts across the district, that base student allocation is status quo. It does not change from last year. Also not included in the governor's budget is the supplemental funding, the additional funding that we've received over the last couple years across the state. So the first year it was $30 million, last year it was $20 million. That equates, the first time it was about $3 million to Fairbanks, additional above and beyond sort of the foundation formula. And then last year it was about $2 million above and beyond the foundation formula. That money was not included. So when I look at a proposed budget, every year our costs increase just kind of naturally based on healthcare, on salary increases, on just the cost of doing business in general without adding anything new. Our expenditures increase approximately 2 to 4%, and we're in that range this year. I think it's about just a little over 3% this year, is just the increase of our costs. So the challenge is when you have static funding, no change in revenue from the state, and in fact a reduction of a few $1 million, and then also status quo funding from the borough, you end up having to make some pretty significant cuts to get that equation to balance out. So there are cuts in this budget. My priority when I built the proposed budget was to keep those cuts away from the classroom, if at all possible. And again, to look at efficiencies and places that we could save behind the scenes, but to keep the people who are working in the classroom and to the degree possible in schools with kids intact. There's so many important things that we're working on with kids, not just in the area of academics, but also in the area of social emotional support, and we want to keep those programs intact if we can, because it's really important that we continue to move forward in those areas. And actually, you'll hear this, I've heard President Johnson talk about this as well. In some places you have to trim in order to continue to invest as well. I mean, we need to continue to be innovative as a school district, and we need to continue to invest in things, new priorities that pop up as being important. One of my own personal priorities is always to support professional development across the system and make sure that people are getting the training and the development that they need to do their jobs well. So, okay, so a few highlights at the elementary schools. One important thing across the board, no change in class size at all. So not in any area have I recommended a change in class size. So keeping those class size numbers at a level that's, that supports high quality student learning. I have proposed a couple investments because of the F-35s, and we're seeing a slight bump in the projected number of students that we hope will be in the district next year, about 47 additional students over last year's projection, so that's good. Actually, and when you look at the rest of the state, I mean, there's still some significant population and student enrollment declines happening around the state. So for Fairbanks to get a bit of a bump is huge. So anyway, because of that, we know that more families are going to be living on Eielson Air Force Base, and that the numbers at Anderson and Crawford and Van Eielson High School will continue to go up. And so, of course, we're monitoring that pretty closely, and then also in the North Pole area. But specifically, I'm adding some counseling staff at Anderson and Crawford so that a few years ago, as those numbers were decreasing, we cut both of those counseling positions to part-time. So I'm increasing those back to full-time at Anderson and Crawford. At elementary school, the only reduction kind of behind the scenes, again, in order to balance the equation, is in the area of equipment and supplies, and then also activities money. As far as secondary schools go, and again, there's a page on each of these. If you're interested in reading more of the detail, you can look online. Investments at the secondary level include the addition of support for our, and this is kind of our big innovation at the secondary level, the North Star College. And so that is our partnership, right, with the University of Alaska Fairbanks. And finally, in Fairbanks, establishing a middle college for Fairbanks. Anchorage has had one for quite some time. Wasilla Mat-Su School District has had one for quite some time. And so we've been talking about it with UAF for a number of years, and finally we're able to get all the pieces moving and in place to start a middle college here in Fairbanks. So the investment for the North Star College is a counselor. So the UAF will be providing lots of support as well in terms of staff and space, and they're going to renovate some space, and they've waived some fees and things. The district side of the equation is a counselor, a high school counselor, who will be up on campus working with UAF staff. Also, tuition and fees for our students who are selected to attend, and those, I guess, basically those are the big things for the North Star College. The other thing that we'll look at once we know where students are coming from in terms of attending the North Star College, we'll see if there's a way for us to provide transportation as well. We have a shuttle system already in place, like for Hutchinson High School, and if we're able to expand that and include the university campus, we'll do that if we can. So in terms of reductions at the secondary level, again, behind the scenes kind of things, equipment and supplies, and again, also money for activities. At the district-wide level, quite a few things on the list. So important investments. A couple, actually 3 years ago, we made, through the negotiations process, we made significant healthcare plan design changes that resulted in some pretty significant savings for the district. Those savings have run their course, and now, just again, like the rest of the country, the rest of the state, healthcare costs continue to increase, and so we are having to increase our supplement of healthcare by about 2%, so a pretty significant bump to the benefit rate. Another thing that we were able to accomplish in negotiations this last time was a 403B match on the part of the district to members of the Fairbanks Education Association who might be interested in that opportunity, and so we're making an investment there as well. I'm also adding some custodial staff at Star of the North and the Career Education Center. Also some nursing staff out at North Pole to help support North Pole, and again the Star of the North program. And those are the kind of the big investments. So again, not too many, but a couple things here and there. The rest on a district-wide level are restructures and reductions. So we're doing some restructuring downtown. Every budget season I take the opportunity to do some restructuring. We're combining a couple positions in human resources and technology. I'm also restructuring what I'm doing with student support services. So student support services is that area where social emotional learning kind of lives. And social emotional learning and all of the supports that are involved there require staff that are not teachers necessarily. They're staff who support sort of the non-academic development of kids. And so you've got lots of people who live in that student support services arena: counselors, prevention intervention specialists, behavior aides, safety assistants, social service managers. And so I'm restructuring a little bit as that arena, that area of public education grows, putting some structure to that and some leadership to that, so that in a lot of ways, so that we can be sure that all of those folks involved get the professional development and the infrastructure support that they need to do their work in the schools with kids, and not just with kids, but with families too. There's lots of family pieces to that. So in terms of reductions, a lot of, again, reductions at the district-wide level. Some staffing reductions in our computer technician staff, in our facilities staff, in our special education staff. We've got some reorganization going on. E-learning teacher, we're pulling back a little bit on our e-learning teaching staff. In accounts payable, our business services department, we're pulling back on that, and also in our transportation department. So some other areas that we've trimmed will be in terms of curriculum materials and supplies, and again, we kind of watch what those needs are and adjust as needed. Supplies and equipment, some of our professional technical services, and also travel, or the reductions district-wide. So that is basically the overview of the proposed budget. I just wanted to talk a little bit. We talked about timeline. If you're kind of curious about how that state formula works and sort of the funding from the legislature, there's a page right in the front of the budget book, and again, you can find this online, where it talks about how that formula works. So if you're interested in that, you can look at that. It also sounds like there might be, as the legislature works through, the permanent fund issue and how to address sort of that need that there might be some interesting bills coming through that talk about specific allocation for education funding, which again, if there's a way that the state can forecast or project education funding into the future, that would be good for all of us. So we'll see what those bills look like when the time comes. I encourage everybody to connect with your principals, to connect with my office if there's any information that you need. Connect with your local PTAs and also the larger PTA council. There are lots of folks who really kick it into gear during session to advocate during the legislative session, and we appreciate all that you do on our behalf. And if you need any information from us, we're happy to provide that for you. So thanks. Be watching this process. There's opportunity for public comment on the budget at every single regular school board meeting between now and when the board makes a decision about the recommended budget that goes to the borough. There's also work sessions and opportunities for public comment there. If you don't have time to come to a meeting, again, through our Let's Talk platform right on our district website, you can send in comments. It goes directly to the board. They see that every 2 weeks. That's all sent to them. Of course, you could just email the school board too through normal mechanisms. So lots of opportunities to give input on the proposed budget. And then once again, as we get closer to the final approved budget, that process happens at the end of May, early June. There'll be opportunity to weigh in again. And I'll probably do another update probably like mid-May, end of May, so folks know where we're at. Because then hopefully we'll know some numbers. We'll know what the state what the revenue looks like and what the borough revenue looks like. So with that, thanks, and I appreciate your time. And again, let us know if you have any questions, and we'd love your help to advocate for public education funding in Alaska.